I may have a new favorite off the 1001 list. Let's get to it. Hi everyone, I'm Sandy and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a 1001 book countdown for you, which I'm very excited about because I have quite a bit to talk about today. But if you're not familiar with the 1001 book countdown, I will leave a card up here for you where you can go and check out the original video in all its great detail about what I'm doing. And yeah, we'll answer all your questions hopefully. But basically what I'm doing is I'm reading books off of the 1001 books you must read before you die list, and I'm just slowly making my way through that list. It's a big project, but I am making some very good progress in starting my channel. So hopefully you consider giving me a subscribe and sticking around and seeing just how far I make it on this journey. Yeah, so I'm excited. So for today, what we will go ahead and do is put up the numbers, which I have written down somewhere, which are 9, 28, and 31, and I'm going to put them up over here today and see if I can switch sides that I hold the book up on and which side the numbers are up on. Mainly because I want to have my bookshelves in the background and I can't do that. Anyway, you don't need to know all of that. So 9, 28, and 31. So last week I had talked about the Magic Mountain and whether or not audiobooks should count towards the countdown. And everyone was so incredibly supportive, and the overwhelming response is I'm being way too hard on myself and that I should count audiobooks. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce down the number from 928 to 927 and count the Magic Mountain in the countdown. And yeah, so thank you to everyone who took a moment to give your thoughts and opinions about whether or not I should count it. I really do appreciate it. And in light of that, I have another question for you. So do rereads also count if I haven't talked about them on my channel yet? Because this week I have a great book to talk about that was on the 1001 book list, but it's a book that I had previously read before starting my channel. And that book is, oh, see, I'm going to have it on the wrong side, 2001 A Space Odyssey by Arthur C. Clarke. So should I count this in the main number if I have read it but haven't talked about it? I certainly won't count it if I talk about the same book over and over again, but I'm curious what your thoughts are about that. So for this particular book, 2001 A Space Odyssey by Arthur C. Clarke, I did this as a buddy read with Gemma Books and Fraser Simon from Springboard Thought and Sarah from Freshly Read Books. This is our third buddy read together. Third? Yes, third buddy read. No. Second buddy read together. I don't know what I'm saying. Second buddy read together. We have kind of a vintage sci-fi thing going on. And so this book was originally published in 1968 and actually corresponds very closely with the movie release of 2001 A Space Odyssey. It seemed like the book and the movie were being kind of done at the same time. This gorgeous edition is a Penguin Galaxy edition. And it's the only book of Arthur C. Clarke's that's actually on the countdown, but this is a really pretty one. There are like 5 other books in this series, but I haven't bought. But I do like this edition quite a bit. It is very, very pretty and looks very pretty on the shelf. So what is 2001 Space Odyssey about? Who knows? So it starts off with, there's multiple sections in this book. It starts off basically in prehistoric kind of times with apes who, are not surviving. They can't feed, they can't do a lot of things because they don't know how to make tools, they don't know how to survive. And this monolith shows up in the desert and kind of helps them figure out how to make things and become more man-like, I guess. And then it quickly transitions to where you're on a spaceship heading to the moon because there's something else that has happened on that. And then you're on another spaceship heading out towards Jupiter and Saturn, where there is a fantastic artificial intelligence being whose name is Hal. And Hal is, interesting. And in the movie is interesting. And then the book kind of just meanders a little bit for me. And so the ending I was very disappointed by. Even in the reread, I was disappointed by it. The first 3 parts of the book, I really enjoyed quite a bit. But then the last 2 just kind of fell apart. The monolith at the end and kind of like this I don't know. It just was, it just felt odd to me at the very end. But Arthur C. Clarke, A Space Odyssey, should account towards my countdown since it was a reread. And thank you to everyone who read it with me. I really enjoyed the reread of it. So that is the first book I'm going to talk about in the countdown. Okay, so now for the official countdown. The first book that will count is Julian Barnes' The Sense of an Ending. And so this book was originally published in 2011, so it is a much newer one on the list. And he actually, this book, won the Booker Prize in, I believe, 2011. This book follows a character whose name is Tony, and Tony in the beginning is going through his life as a young boy with his friends. It feels very coming of age-ish. The first half of this book is separated into two parts, part 1 and part 2, and part 1 pulled me in so fast on this book. I read it in 45 minutes while waiting for my mom at an appointment, and I just was so excited to get to the second half and see what happened with Tony as he goes into, later in life and is reflecting back. And I did not like the second part. I was so disappointed by the second part. The first part, I was there, I was invested, loved it. It's not a very long book. It's only about 150 pages. But the first part, it had me. I was right there along with Tony and his classmates and going through all of their experiences. And then the second half, fell apart for me. I was so disappointed in the second half. I wanted to love this book after the first half, and it just didn't work. For me anyway. So I'm curious if you've read this one, what you think. But this book will take us from 927, see, I'm on the wrong side again, 927 to 926, and it is on the 2022 list, which will take us from 31 to 30. I don't think I explained that second number earlier. Every year at the beginning of the year, I pre-select 52 books, and as I make my way through those 52 books, I drop down the second number. So yeah, that was The Sense of an Ending, which took us to 926 and 30. So the next book that I have is The Once and Future King by T.H. White. So this book I read as a buddy read with Tiffany over at Beautiful Minutia. This book was originally published in 1958. It is loosely based on the Sir Thomas Malory novel Les Morts d'Arthur. And it is about Arthur, the Round Table, Guinevere, Lancelot, Merlin in it. It's separated into 4 books. The first book is The Sword and the Stone. The second is The Queen of Air and Darkness, and then The Ill-Made Knight, and then The Candle in the Wind. So the first book being The Sword and the Stone is exactly what you would think it is. It is the story of Wart and him as a page or a squire, and is just working, and he meets Merlin, and Merlin is this magical wizard who turns him into fish and really is helping him along as he's learning all of these new things. And then he pulls the sword out of the stone and becomes King Arthur. So the first book was everything I expected it to be: magical, fun, lots of really interesting characters in it, and you just kind of love this childlike piece when he's turning into these different animals and experiencing different things. And so that part I really, really enjoyed about The Once and Future Knight. Queen of Air and Darkness, I did not like very much. It really was a struggle to make it through that particular book. When we get to The Ill-Made Knight, you really start along with Lancelot and Guinevere and King Arthur and the Round Table, and there is a lot of adult content in that book. And much more than I was expecting. I always kind of had this in my head as a middle grade-ish book, and it didn't feel very middle grade-ish. But you do learn a lot about King Arthur. You learn a lot about Guinevere, about another character whose name is named Elaine, about Lancelot's son, just a wide variety of different pieces. So you really get to dig into some of that time. You get to go into a couple of quests. This particular book was odd because it would, at times, branch into modern things like a diver or an intercom, or talk about Mallory. when it's a book you're being told about this time. And so it kind of pulled you out of the story, or pulled me out of the story just a little bit in that, which I found really fascinating. I'm not sure why the author chose to do that, but it definitely was part of this book. And then the last book, The Candle in the Wind, I would say was okay. It wasn't one that I was like, oh wow, this is amazing, but you do get a resolution around the Knights of the Round Table and around King Arthur, and yeah, it's a really, I'm very happy I read it. I'm so glad I read it with Tiffany. We always have great discussions about books, and she and I were feeling very similarly about this. But the book one, if you want to read The Sword and the Stone, it is very familiar from a story perspective and was really a lot of fun. It wasn't my favorite book that I was talking about at the very beginning, but it was a decent one, is what I say. I don't read a ton of fantasy, and this book didn't feel like it was super fantastical, even though it says the world's greatest fantasy classic. Only the first chapter felt a little bit like fantasy. Everything else felt just kind of like a story. So I don't know. But with this book, we do get to go from, I'm pointing on the wrong side again, 926 to 925, and it was on my 2022 list. So that number gets to go from 30 to 29. It also is the first book off of the Big Book Summer Challenge video that I had. So yay, I have one of my big books done, because this one was 600 pages. Woo! I have one more book for you. And this is the one. This is the one, everyone, that I'm shocked at how much I really liked this book, and that is Cat's Eye by Margaret Atwood. First of all, look at this beautiful book. I am just in love with this series. I wish I could find the other three. I'm missing three of this. I'm missing The Handmaid's Tale, Surfacing, Oryx and Crake. Those are the three I can't find, and I've looked. But, oh, so pretty. This is, I believe, called the Bloomsbury edition. The Bloomsbury edition. So this particular book was actually published in 1988. It was shortlisted for the Booker in 1989. It's, Margaret Atwood has a large volume of work, and this is kind of somewhere in the middle of her work from what I read. This particular book follows a woman whose name is Elaine, and Elaine is an artist and is getting ready to have a retrospective show of her work. And Elaine is kind of reflecting back on her life, but when it reflects back on her life, it's told very much just from her perspective, as if she's living it, not as if she's remembering what happened. And it goes through Elaine's growing up with her unconventional parents who don't really fit into the 1940s, 1950s kind of mode of what parents should be, which make me love them, by the way. Her dad is kind of odd, but she will live in tents for a while, lives in hotels for a while. She has a brother named Stephen. She's going through just, elementary school and junior high school, and it goes through high school, it goes through college, it goes through all the time reflecting kind of back in from her current perspective, a snapshot of what's going on right before her retrospective, back to a point in time when it's going through history. I loved Elaine, the main character in this book. Oh my gosh, she goes through so much in this book, and so much of it growing up, a teenage girl with lots of challenges in junior high school, lots of, just mean kids that, come out at you when you're in that age group sometimes. This book hit me on so many levels, and there were at least 2 moments in this book where I was like, just go Elaine! Because she just really comes into her own in this book, and it is so great to see. She goes through some very traumatic things in this book, and she has some very horrible friends. It's like she has PTSD from some events that happen, where she just blocks some of these events out of her history, out of her mind, and you just as me as the reader was just, I was enthralled. I was enthralled with Elaine. It took a couple chapters to kind of get moving, but then I don't want to put it down. I think, so I read this with Heidi from my reading life, and it was wonderful to read this with her. And we both shared similar junior high experiences that were very traumatic, but I loved this book so much. I think it is my new favorite Atwood. I rated it 5 stars. We did talk a little bit about, it does feel very feminine in tone, and a lot of the experiences really resonated with me and my experiences growing up. So I'm curious if you've read this, what you thought of this particular book, because I am in love with Elaine. I think she's amazing. There's a great line in this book where she's arguing with her husband. He has someone over and he says something like, I'm mad or that she was mad because she's a woman, and she responded with, I'm not mad because I'm a woman, I'm mad because you're an asshole. And I was like, yes. I just love that line so much, and I don't know why. Oh, it just cracked me up. But it goes through almost her entire life, and you learn a lot, and sometimes it's a shocking thing that happens, and sometimes it's just this lovely story. But oh, so good. I really enjoyed this book. Like I said, it's one of my new favorites. I'm enthralled with this one. I definitely liked it way more than Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood, which I read last year. Yeah, I don't know how much more I can say about this. It's not rated as high on Goodreads, and I don't ever hear it talked about on BookTube. So I'm really curious why that may be. I'm curious what you think of this book, because like I said, it's not rated super high, and I don't hear it talked about a lot on BookTube. So I'm really curious why that is. If it is more one that appeals maybe to only a certain kind of reader, I'm not sure. But I absolutely adored this book. Like I said, a new favorite. Couldn't put it down, especially towards the end. I had to finish reading it to see what happened to Elaine. And so, yeah, absolutely amazing. But with this book, we get to go from 925 to 924, but it wasn't actually on my 2022 list. I added this late after seeing this on Heidi's Ancient TBR, and yeah, decided to do a buddy read with Heidi. Yeah, it was really, really fun, like I said, to get to talk to Heidi about that particular book. So wonderful, wonderful week. Please let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, what you thought of them. Also, please let me know if you think Rereads should count, and I'll take 2001: A Space Odyssey off my list next week if that's the case. So very successful reading week. By the way, the Once and Future King took me 3 weeks to read, I believe. Cat's Eye took me, I think we started it about 10 days ago. So I've been working on the bulk of these books for most of the month. So I didn't read them all in 1 week. It did take me some time. What do I have coming up? What I had on my June TBR is The House of Euloa by Amelia Pardo Bazan. And then I have 10:04 by Ben Lerner. And then I have Home by Marilyn Robinson. I don't think I'm going to get all 3 of these done in the next week. So considering I haven't read them. But weirdly, I am not reading a book right now. I don't have a single book in progress. And how unusual is that for me as well? But I'm really excited to pick up one of these in the next week. I probably will pick up more than that. But those are the 3 I have left from the 1001 Book Countdown for my June TBR. Not as good as last month where I finished my whole TBR, but we'll see how I do. All right, I'm done rambling. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, thanks. Bye.